Okay, we are officially live. This is the New York City Council District 35 debate / discussion / hour of fun. Right, Steve?
Right, Sky. It's going to be fun until I do my question. We share like fun journalism.
Right. I make it fun and then Steve asks a boring question. So it's a good balance we have going here. So welcome to Politics NY with Sky and my co-host Steve with a tie.
Right here. Yep. Hi.
So we are Politics NY and Schneps Media. We are the only media outlet providing a platform for every single New York City Council candidate to have their voices heard, faces seen, and personalities on display. This is the forum for District 35 in Brooklyn. It's a seat currently held by Lori Cumbo. It encompasses the neighborhoods of Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, and Bed-Stuy. And today's debate can be more like a discussion because there's just a few of us. So we'll get really into it together and we'll make it fast and fun. So every time you talk, we just ask that you keep your answers short and sweet so we can facilitate some conversation. And this forum is being recorded, so you can watch it on PoliticsNY.com. And we have all of our debates there, scheduled debates, recorded debates, upcoming debates, PoliticsNY.com/debates. So thank you, candidates. We have a live audience here with us as well. So hello, live audience. If the live audience has any questions, you can submit them into the Q&A function and we'll try and incorporate them into the course of the conversation. And let's get started. We have an hour together, so we'll end promptly at 9 o'clock. We don't want to waste another second. And let's jump into it. We'll go in alphabetical order, last name first. So we'll begin with Renee Collymore. Let's do a 1-minute introduction, but a non-traditional 1-minute introduction where you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, but include why you are the best candidate to win this council seat. And your audience here is the voters.
In a catchphrase.
Oh, you want to do the catchphrase too? Okay. So introduce yourself. Why are you the best candidate? And give us your catchphrase.
Well, I am Renee Collymore, second generation Brooklynite. I am the daughter of an immigrant dad from Barbados who was raised in Trinidad and a beautiful mom who is from the sweet Carolinas. And I'm running for city council because I have the most experience. I am running for city council because I have what it takes to be a leader, which I am. And I have shown through my record of achievement what I can do and what I will do. I look for this community because I love this community. I know that as your next city council member, I will make sure that our garbage cans are not overflowing. I will make sure that 1,600 more people out of Evansville will not be evicted. I will make sure that the police are held accountable in this district. I will make sure that we take care of our small businesses. I will make sure that our local schools have everything that it needs. I will make sure that we as a people are not overlooked. I will make sure that Black and brown children have all civic education programs in their schools that should be available to them. I have been in this community all of my life. I've only lived one place. My family has been here since the 1940s, and I am proud of that. I am proud because I am a Black woman who owns property. I have met some people that say, oh, you're a landlord and we're gonna come after you. But you know what? As a Black woman, to have property, I am proud of that because my family worked hard. My mother and my father, we worked a long 16-hour days so that we can improve the neighborhood of Fort Greene and Clinton Hill by way of mom and pop businesses. And that's what this is about. This is about understanding that you must give back. This is understanding that you must take care of your community. And that's what I have been doing for the past 25 plus years. Actually, I was born into community service. I was born into understanding who's important. It's not about me. It's not about what I want. It is only about the people of this community and hearing their voices, understanding what the needs are, and getting the work done. I'm running because I will get it done, and I've been getting it done for the past 25 years. I have shown what I can do. I am a former Democratic district leader of the 57th Assembly District, where I hired many poll workers. I select judges, a civil court and Supreme Court and commissioners.
Short, you kind of finish up there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll finish right there.
Your catchphrase.
My catchphrase is spread love is the Brooklyn way.
Good.
Boom. Okay, Curtis Harris, tell us about yourself. What makes you the best candidate and your catchphrase?
Well, first of all, how much time do I have for an opening statement?
A minute and a half.
I just want to confirm, you know, a minute and a half?
Minute and a half.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Curtis Harris. As you know, I am a candidate also for New York City Council in the 35th Council District. And before I go any further, I just want to express my condolences to my opponent here at the passing of her mom, Crystal Hudson. My heart is knitted with yours. Regardless of politics, to lose a mom is a devastating thing. I lost mine 18 years ago, and it gets better. And I pray for your continued healing and your peace for you and your family, all right? Now, once again, my name is Curtis Harris. I believe I am the best candidate for this position. I'm a father of 6 children. As a matter of fact, I'm probably the oldest individual running. A lot of these guys are millennials and are Generation X, and I have experience. I have experience as a financial professional for 40 years as an accountant, corporate, nonprofit, supervising. I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit arts organization for 8 years, Green Earth Poets Cafe and Green Earth Poetry Theater. We've worked with at-risk youth, helping to increase literacy in Brownsville, Brooklyn, Crown Heights, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. We've worked with incarcerated population at Rikers Island Prison, and we worked with our seniors. We engage our seniors, especially during this pandemic in which a lot of them feel isolated and lonely, and we check on them as well. I've been volunteering at the Crown Heights Jewish food pantry, and I've seen a lot of the issues and challenges that our community faces. I was a member of Community Board 8 for about 7-8 years, and I sat on the Housing and Land Use Committee. And a lot of the issues that are now being discussed now, I was fighting against 7-8 years ago. As a member of the Housing and Land Use Committee, you ask anyone on that committee or in that community board who Curtis Harris is, and they will tell you. So I have a track record. It's a very, very productive track record. Last but not least, I'm a loving individual who believes in our people in this district. We live in a district where there's, you know, a tale of two cities. You know, there's ultra wealthy and very, very, very poor.
Mr. Harris, let's wrap it up quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Witt. I believe that our district can work for everyone. So thank you for this opportunity to be a part of Schneps PoliticsNY.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Michael Hollingsworth, welcome. Tell us about yourself. What makes you the best candidate and your catchphrase?
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. So yes, my name is Michael Hollingsworth. I'm born and bred Brooklynite. I'm a rent stabilized tenant. For the past 5 years, I've been a member of New York State's housing movement. I fought and won to keep my neighbors in our homes and our communities. Everything from getting repairs done, stopping harassment, strengthening tenant protection statewide, stopping luxury development that has continued the cycle of displacing people of color, particularly Black folks in District 35. Through my housing work, I've always stood up and protected our most vulnerable neighbors. And now I just want to expand that into other areas in city government in terms of education, environmental, carceral, economic justice. It's time for the most marginalized of our neighbors to have a real fighter in City Hall. And I think there's no one else, I think, better suited for that. I think I'm best suited for this job because this time, you know, 2021, it demands new leadership, right? It demands the kind of leadership that is unbeholden to and uncorrupted by the political establishment, and also not indebted to big real estate. And I think that no one else's resume speaks more boldly to that than mine does. And I guess for a catchphrase, people seem to like "Get Your Hollingsworth." It's a hashtag we use.
Nice.
I thought it was kind of corny, but like people love it. So "Get Your Hollingsworth."
Great.
And
Thank you. Thank you. And next is Crystal Hudson.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Sky, for moderating this panel discussion tonight. My name is Crystal Hudson. I'm running to represent the 35th District in New York City Council. I'm a first-generation American, third-generation Brooklynite. I'm also the daughter of the late Carol K. Hudson, who had Alzheimer's disease and for whom I was the primary caregiver for the last 8 years. I had a career in sports marketing for over 10 years, but it was moving into my mom's house and caring for her all these years that brought me into public service. My mother was a nurse in New York City for over 40 years, but when she needed care, it felt like there was none to be found. So I started on this path to public service. I worked in the city council and as first deputy public advocate under Jumaane Williams. When the pandemic hit, I organized my neighbors to start a mutual aid organization, one that continues to deliver groceries to our neighbors in need, largely Black undocumented immigrants who have still not seen relief from government to this day. When Central Brooklyn was not being vaccinated at the rates we should have been, my campaign called over 2,000 seniors and made hundreds of appointments for them to get vaccinated. I'm running for office because I believe that every resident of the 35th District, from birth to death, should see a future for themselves in our community. Far too many kids go to segregated schools. Far too many seniors struggle to stay in their homes and age in place safely. Far too many tenants are vulnerable to the pressures of predatory landlords and greedy developers. I have a track record of leadership, and the time for leadership is now. Again, my name is Crystal Hudson, and my catchphrase is, I am deliberate and unafraid of nothing, which is a quote from the great Audre Lorde. Thank you.
Thank you. And Regina Kinsey, welcome. Tell us about yourself and what makes you the best candidate up here, and maybe a catchphrase, and you have 1.5 minutes.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you, Sky and Mr. Wynn, for inviting me. My name is Regina Kinsey. I'm a lifelong Brooklynite who has devoted 20 plus years to advocating for our community and being the voice of those who didn't have a voice of their own. I'm a product of New York City Public Schools and also a product of the City University of New York. I'm running to bring balance back to our community. As many of you know, our community has rapidly gentrified, and a lot of our residents feel like they're on the outside looking in. A lot of our residents has been displaced. And on top of that, I'm running as a safety candidate. As you know, some streets may have more curb appeal than others, and some of the streets in some of the little pockets of our area may have a little more crime than others, but crime is definitely out of control. And I'm running to say no to the developers that have had a stranglehold in our community for the last 8 years, and to bring safety back to our streets and for everyone to have a quality of life. My particular end of the district is a war zone. And I know what it feels like to live in fear. Living in fear is not living. Everyone deserves a good quality of life. When we have seniors afraid to come out of the house, children being shot, men and women being shot, we have an issue, we have a problem. So my catchphrase is, I'm not afraid to say no, and I don't follow. What I will be doing is making sure that everyone feels safe and to try to bring a good quality of life to everyone in our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to be clear, we have 5 candidates on the screen here. There are more than these 5 running for this seat, District 35. And we, Schneps Media, PoliticsNY, we invited everyone to be part of this debate. Every candidate was invited. We don't discriminate against funds or anything like that. So just wanted to put that out there. Okay, let's go in the same order. And the first question is for you to ask a question of someone else up here. And we'll get the fire burning. So Renee, you're up first. Pose a question to one of your fellow candidates here.
And they have 30 seconds.
Yeah, and they can respond.
Okay, thank you. My question is for Crystal Hudson. And by the way, Crystal, I do give you my condolences for your mom. Now, I would like to know, the question is, if you cannot honestly admit that Lori Cumbo is supporting you, and you're starting off the campaign not telling the truth based right on that, how can we trust that you'll tell the truth about anything else if you may get elected?
Lori Cumbo is not supporting me. I would love to see any proof you have of the contrary. Lori and I have been public in our opposition and difference of opinions, you know, everything from the Bedford Union Armory to her stance on defunding the NYPD. I have named it and I've been unapologetic in my dissent. And so, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out here about me, thanks to some of the other candidates. And so that continues to be the case. And so if you have proof that Lori is helping me, I would love to see it, because she is not.
Okay.
Okay. Curtis, you want to ask a question to one of your fellow candidates here?
Curtis here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. My question is to Mr. Hollingsworth. Michael, prior to your work with the Tenants Association, where have you been and what have you been doing in Crown Heights?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. I, like a lot of other, you know, folks who look like me, had to help raise a family, help raise two young nieces, take care of her father, who was ailing ultimately until he passed away. Also, at the same time, I was in school and working. So I think my experience prior to getting into activism isn't that much different from, you know, tons of other young Black folks who have to juggle multiple personal family responsibilities. And I make no apologies for doing that. You know, my family, like a lot of families, had some rough times, and I had to step up. I had to become an adult quicker than maybe a lot of other folks. But again, I make no apologies for that. I'm proud to have two young nieces now who are grown women, who are doing well for themselves. And yeah, so that's what I was doing before I got into activism. And then obviously, you know, the past 5 years, I've been extremely active. And what I like to tell people is, you know, I'd put the 5 years that I've been involved in this work, whether it's fighting against racist rezonings, giveaways like the Bedford Union Armory, suing the city, nullifying a rezoning, currently fighting the 960 Franklin, organizing CHGU statewide to win the tenant protections in 2019, winning a rent freeze for rent stabilized tenants last year. And I'm probably forgetting some other stuff, but you know, I'd put that 5 years up against anybody, whether you've been in this for 10, 15, 20. I'm proud of the 5 years of work that I've done. So thanks for the question, Curtis.
Thank you. Now, Michael, it's your turn to ask a question of one of your competitors here.
Yeah, I don't know if I have, I mean, I have sort of a general question, and like anybody could sort of answer it, but you know, right now, well, it's sort of a two-part one, I guess. I'd like to know from any of these candidates or all of the candidates, what did you do specifically to fight back against the 2018 racist rezoning of Franklin Avenue? And what is your position today on the development at 960 Franklin Avenue, which will continue the cycle of displacing long-term Black residents and destroy part of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden? Because I've been in that fight for about 2.5 years. I'm not sure where everybody else has been. So I'd like to, you know, get folks on the record.
I'd like to answer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you for that question, Michael. For the past 6-7 years, I was a member of Community Board 8, and I sat on the Housing and Land Use Committee. So we've had additional battles for the past 7-8 years that you probably wouldn't know about, because I don't remember ever seeing you at any of these community board meetings. We have been fighting. I have been fighting developers left and right. The very first question I would have for developers is, okay, you have affordable housing? Well, what do you consider affordable? And you could ask anyone in Community Board 8, from this Johnny Granville to Ethel Tyus to all the leadership there, Gib Riccone, Rob Witherwax, everyone who knows me and knows that I've been a member of Community Board 8, and I've been fighting for the past 7 or 8 years, not just 2 years, but 7 or 8 years, fighting developers from coming in and displacing this community with affordable housing.
Sky, can I just respond to something?
Sure.
Because I want to clear this up publicly, because I know Curtis has been going around saying that nobody's ever seen me at Community Board 8. And as someone who's been a member of the Community Board for 7 to 8 years, you should realize the difference between Community Board 8 and Community Board 9. I'm actually in Community Board 9. That's why you've never seen me in Community Board 8. So like, I think you should be aware of that. Like when you're going around saying you've never seen me, ask folks who have been at Community Board 9 ULURP meetings whether or not they've ever seen me. So I think I'd appreciate it if you would stop, using that line, because it's just wrong. And in terms of, saying that you were on the Community Board for 7 or 8 years, that's an impressive record, but within that 7 or 8 years, folks have still been gentrified out of the neighborhood. So like, it's one thing to say that I've been on this Community Board for 7 or 8 years, but if folks are still being pushed out of the neighborhood, if we're still getting luxury housing, if we have a few quote unquote affordable houses, quote unquote a few affordable units that folks have to fight through a lottery system to get, then like, maybe you might want to reflect on that 7 or 8 years, because, something isn't working.
Can I reply to that?
Yes, you can. And then let's open it up a little bit.
Yeah, let's open it to other candidates.
And Michael, that is why I'm running for city council, because I recognize the impotence of Community Board, the Housing and Land Use Committee. And I understand the dynamics. And that's why I decided to up the ante. I figure I can be a lot more effective in the city council with the same fierceness and the same fire that I had on the Community Board. I can bring the results that I wanted to bring on a Community Board level, but because, let's face it, community boards are dominated by developers, and the political system, the establishment of which I'm not a part of, at which I will hope to bring about positive change, because I'm an outsider looking in. And I owe no one, like Shirley Chisholm, I am unbought and unbossed.
Let's move on to someone else. Sky.
Renee, did you want to add to this?
Michael, and it's nice to meet you for the first time, by the way. I would like to say that you made a comment and said that your 5 years, no one can match your 5 years. I've been fighting this fight in these trenches, in this community for the past 25 years, and I have never seen you on the front lines. Let me say that Michael Hollingsworth is allegedly a member of the Crown Heights Tenants Union, which he says. And do you know how many times that I've spoken at the Crown Heights Tenants Union and I've never seen you? Let me say something, Michael Hollingsworth. I've never seen you. You know why? Because I've never heard you. See, when you're a leader, you will speak up. Leaders speak up. The problem is I did not hear you because you were not leading. If you are a leader and if you were working, I would have heard you speaking up about something. And while maybe if you were in those meetings sitting in the back, I was up front in the microphone speaking up for this community many, many times. And I've never seen you. Now, I agree with Curtis. Curtis has been around. I could give him that. That is one thing I do know, okay? But I have to say that while I don't know where you were, I was fighting for landlord. I mean, fighting against the tenants with scrupulous landlords. I was fighting the landlords. I was fighting management companies. You know why? Because in Prospect Heights, I was able to get a great job done by working with the tenants who called me and said, Ms. Collymore, we need the repairs in our apartments right at the corner of St. John's and Underhill. You know what I did, Michael? I went into the apartment building. I walked through that apartment building, one apartment by each apartment. I called up the management company and demanded him that he meet me at this location where we did a walkthrough. I made sure that all of the tenants were available that day. And guess what, Michael? I was able to accomplish getting a new roof on the building. I was able to be I was successful in making sure that every single apartment was repaired. You know why? Because I've been around. I hear the cries of the people, and they call me and they tell me what they need. That's leadership, because they know that I can get it done. I've never seen it. I got to be honest.
Yes.
Can I respond to her?
Yes, and then let's open it up to Crystal and Regina.
Yeah, but I just want to respond to Renee. So Renee, it's yes, it's nice to meet you, but actually we did meet once before, and it was last year during a rent strike action here in Crown Heights. You showed up, people were like, "Who's that lady?" Folks were like, "We don't know," and then you actually stood next to.
Never, Michael.
You actually, yes, you actually stood next to a CHGU member, and you started talking about you're here because you're running for city council, and like that was the first time I'd ever seen you. And I think it's also sort of funny, right? Like if no one has ever seen me, right? Like if I just appeared all of a sudden, why do I have the support of actual tenant organizations like the Crown Heights Tenant Union? Why do I have allies in movement to protect the people who, as you know, fight back against gentrification? Why do I have the support of Met Council? Why do I have the support of folks, from Met Council? Why do I have support from folks inside Housing Justice for All? Do you think that housing fighters, folks who've actually been on the ground, are going to support someone who just appeared all of a sudden? I think
yes,
one thing,
because you're a part of that group.
Could you ask her not to interrupt me, because I didn't interrupt her.
I want to open it up, really.
Yeah,
Can I just finish what I was going to say? Is sort of, yeah, is sort of my last point is there's this thing that people do, like Miss Collymore, where they think leadership is where's the microphone, where's the camera? Let me jump in front of the camera for the stunt. And like, that's leadership, and that's all they know. And again, that's sort of the old way of doing things. And, you know, I guess that's one way to go about it, but obviously I have a different approach. But thanks for the question. Thank you.
Mike, I have works behind my name. I have deeds behind my name, and no one can say that's not true. So whoever you're talking about, they must have just got to the neighborhood 2 days ago, because my name speaks for itself and my works speak for itself. There's no one that can say that I have not done everything that I said that I have done for this community. And I'm proud of it because I love my neighborhood.
Thank you, guys. Listen, this type of, I hear echoing a little. Let me just go like this. This type of interaction is good because I think it gives voters insight into who you are and a little bit about your personalities and who likes who and who doesn't like who. So it's good. So thank you for having this discussion. Do Crystal or Regina want to weigh into Michael's initial question?
I'd love to actually pivot to policy, if I may. And, you know, considering the Supreme Court is about to hear a major case on Roe v. Wade, I'd like to at least ask, I'd like to ask everyone, but starting with the two gentlemen in the room, what their vision is for sexual and reproductive health, how we're going to address the Black maternal mortality rates, and how are we going to ensure that every person who needs access to an abortion can have access.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can sort of go first. Yeah, so when it comes to, I mean, I guess first I should say, you know, in terms of the Supreme Court, I'm a big proponent of Biden back in the court. I know that there are some Democrats who are opposed to that, but I think there are about 4 justices, 4 seats that were stolen from Democrats. Biden should appoint 4 extremely left
Can you address the question, please, Mr. Hollingsworth?
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the issue of gender equity, we need to, in my opinion, once and for all, end gender oppression. And some of those clear steps I think we can take. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And let me mute other people. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some of the first steps we can take is by doing things like closing the wage gap, fund programs to support training, recruitment, and career development for women and gender non-conforming people, which I think is important. Ensure that like all people can become union members, support unionization efforts in industries where women and gender non-conforming people are heavily represented. guarantee 6 months of like parental leave, enact paid parental leave. And in terms of,
Sorry, I just want to clarify. I'm asking about the Black maternal mortality rates and abortion, not jobs. So I want folks to address that specifically, and any policy and plans to address the Black women in New York City are 12 times more likely to die during birth than white women. And, I'm somebody who is very much interested in investing in, programs, organizations, training for doctors, so that we are not seeing those Black maternal mortality rates, ensuring that everybody has access to a doula if they want one, free, healthcare, accessible healthcare, that we are investing in our public health system. So I want to talk about specifically policies and investments that you're trying to make to address the Black maternal mortality rate, given the recent decision to review the Roe v. Wade case. So I just want to clarify.
Let's give Mr. Harris a shot at it. Mr. Harris?
Trying to unmute here. Thank you, Mr. Witt, and thank you, Crystal, for that question. I am all for women's right to choose. First of all, I totally, as a father of 6 children, 3 girls, ages 25, 31, and 36, probably around your age. And I am totally for women's rights. And as far as Black maternal mortality, I think it's absurd. I think it's insane that in the year 2021, that our mothers, our daughters, our sisters should have the health challenges that they currently have. I know that as a result of childbearing. I know as a father, and I was at the birth of each one of my children's entry into this world. And also my grandsons, my daughter, my 31-year-old daughter had a son 2 years ago. So I understand the challenges firsthand. I'm not speaking from a textbook or a newspaper or op-ed. I'm speaking from experience as a father who was in the delivery room, catching my son, catching my daughter, and doing what any good father would do. So absolutely, it's one of the most precarious times for any woman of color, white, Asian. But in answer to your question, you want to know about Black maternal. Of course, there's disproportionate number of health disparities in the Black and brown community. We know that. COVID shined a light on that.
I'm asking what you do about it.
It has shown us, if I may, without interrupting, my dear, with all due respect.
Don't call me your dear, Curtis.
Yes, dear. It's a term of endearment. With all due respect, I truly...
That's actually a blatant show of disrespect.
All right, Mr. Witt, if you can't control your guests, then I'm just going to be quiet and let them talk.
Regina, do you have a question? Correct, Sky?
Yes.
Or do you think that we should just let them go? I don't know.
Here, Regina.
Mute. Okay, hello. Am I supposed to be answering Crystal's question, or are we going back to the question that I never got to ask?
You have a chance to ask a question now to your other.
You can also answer Crystal's question real briefly, please.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Yes, well, my grandmother always used to remind me that my mother almost died having me. Thank God she didn't. Thank God that I'm here. So I'm all for investing in women's health and the Reproductive Act. And I do believe that a woman has the right to choose, absolutely. So going back to the other question, I wanted to ask, Curtis, I can't agree with Curtis. All due respect to you, Mr. Hollingsworth. I am a member of Community Board 8, and I too haven't seen you. And I also frequent Community Board 9 meetings as well. It could just be an oversight that I just missed you, you know, all due respect. But I do have a question for you two, because you two are the biggest proponents of defunding the police. So what I would like to know is how do you plan on moving forward with that? Particularly you, Mr. Hollingsworth, because you want to abolish completely. How do the residents fit into that category? How do you plan on defunding and abolishing? And how is that going to work for the men, women, children, and seniors of this community if we don't have police to keep us safe? And if we're living in fear and we're already living in gun-riddled communities, how do you two plan on rolling that out and being honest with the residents that you are anti-police? How does that work? Because if the police are targets, where do that leave us? Right now, the police are used for target practice. How is this? Is it social workers supposed to come to our rescue? We have victims all over the city, victims every day on the subway. Asian hate crime is out of control. How can you go on with this narrative that's so dangerous and hurting our communities? How will we benefit from your narrative? Please explain.
Yeah, and I guess I will say, this is sort of like with Renee. Ms. Kinsey, we actually did meet, I think it was early last year or late 2019 in Balboa restaurant when we were celebrating one of the wins against the Franklin Avenue rezoning. So again, this idea that like I just popped up out of like nowhere is, I mean, it's kind of comical. But and another thing I would say is there's nowhere in my platform where you see me call for abolishing the police.
I read that in your bio on your website.
No, you did not.
You said each year you want to abolish, each year you want to defund and ultimately abolish, and that we can take care of each other.
Yeah, it's okay. I think I know my policy, and I know that nowhere in my policy do you see abolishing. What you see is me calling for. What you see is me calling for defunding the NYPD to refund historically redlined communities like mine, communities that have been under-resourced and underserved for years. Through my lifetime living here in New York City, I've seen the NYPD budget balloon from somewhere around 700 million in the 80s to 11 billion today, with almost 40,000 uniformed officers. Yet and still, our neighborhoods still have crime. And so my question is like, why is that, right? And it is because of my lived experience living here. What we do is we focus on the quote unquote crime fighting piece, where we dump money after money into things like broken windows, stop and frisk, anti-crime units, year after year after year. And still there's crime. And that's because we have never dealt with the root cause of crime, which is poverty. And so I am someone who wants us to stop spending so much money in the crime fighting piece and actually invest in the anti-poverty piece of it. You know, you look at any quote unquote good neighborhood throughout the city, you know, whether you want to call it Park Slope, Copper Hill, whatever. Those are neighborhoods that have been invested in over generations, in housing, in healthcare, in schools, and most importantly, in the people who live there. We have never done that in Black communities. And so I'm unafraid of saying that that's what we need to do right now. That's the blueprint we need to start using in neighborhoods of color, is investing in anti-poverty programs, breaking the school to prison pipeline, breaking these cycles that keep folks living in poverty year after year after year, invest in our housing, invest in economic opportunity, invest in healthcare. And so that's what I want to do in terms of taking money from the NYPD and investing in that. And you also didn't see me. You also didn't.
But how does that work for the residents? That's what I want to know.
I would love to jump in.
Can I please finish?
Crystal.
Jumping in, can I just finish my last?
All right, Mike, let Crystal.
Crystal.
Yeah. I just want to finish the last
You
point.
say that every time you want to finish the last.
Yeah, that's because people
had a good piece of the floor, Mr. Holland.
People would stop interrupting. I'd be able to finish. But Ms. Kinsey said, she also said that I hate police. There's nowhere in my platform where you've seen me say that I hate police. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
The evidence is on your social media.
Let's hear from Crystal, please.
Thank you. And Regina, thank you for the question. I appreciate it because It is important to have these conversations when people do have a difference of opinion. I think what I have found is that people so often think they don't want to defund the NYPD. And then when I have conversations with them, when I meet people where they are, they realize they do want to defund the NYPD. Because this is what I always say to folks. If we put ourselves back into the middle of last summer, at the height of the pandemic, in the middle of the protests, what we saw was a police force that had batons, tasers, guns, SUVs, helicopters, shields, bicycles to address peaceful protesters. And in our hospitals, what we saw were healthcare providers, healthcare professionals that did not have PPE, they didn't have masks, they didn't have gowns, they didn't have shields, they didn't have ventilators, they did not have any of the resources, the funding, the staffing, the equipment that they needed to quite literally save lives. And so when I have that conversation with folks in the community who are reluctant to talk about defunding the NYPD, they get it. And they understand what I know to be true, which is that we do not need to continue to increase a bloated police budget when we can't even save our own lives. And so I know that community, what it takes to keep our communities safe. It is access to a quality education. It is access to healthcare and culturally competent healthcare that saves us instead of killing us. It's access to good jobs with good wages, particularly union jobs. And it's access to after-school programs, opportunities. Those are the things that keep our communities safe.
So here's where placating the people come into the picture here, because why we have to hold people accountable. You're talking about defunding an agency that is here to keep us safe when it's the council people that gave the police that budget. Now you want to talk about what our hospitals didn't have, and you're absolutely right. So now we should be holding the governor accountable, who has been defunding our hospitals ever since he's been there and not reinvesting in them so that we have 21st century hospitals, which I want to do, invest in our hospitals. We can't continue to placate the people and blame a city agency that the city council is in charge of and allocated the money to them. We can't continue to act like it's the police for, and they have to put these community centers or whatever you're looking for into the community. Why didn't you ask all of those electeds that's in office now to allocate these funds to the community and allocate the different community centers or whatever else you're looking for to be placed into the system, into the community? Why do you expect the police to do it?
Those of us who've been fighting on the NYPD did ask those
community centers and anything else you want in the community. Stop placating the people. When the city council allocated that budget, they could have also allocated more of the budget to the health and hospitals. The governor's been cutting the budget every year. And if you want a lot of programs, Lori Cumbo had 8 years to put any kind of program into the community that you're calling for now. We have to hold the right people accountable, not the people that's keeping us safe.
That's right.
So let's go to Crystal for a moment, then Curtis, then Renee, and then Michael, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Thank you. I was just going to say, those of us who have been calling for defunding the NYPD, we have been calling them out. We have been asking for them to be held accountable. I wrote an op-ed last summer after the budget vote. I co-authored it with 6 other women also running for city council in Brooklyn, because we were so gravely disappointed in the budget vote last year. And so those of us who have been fighting to defund the NYPD, we have been saying it, we've been talking about it, and the need to reallocate those resources into our communities and where we need it the most.
But why didn't the city council, the Senate, the assembly allocate funds into our district and our community? They have the money. Why didn't they?
Okay.
Why didn't they?
May I please address this issue?
We will not placate the people on my watch. We know where the money comes from. It's not the police responsibility.
Thank you. Let's
to put community centers in our community.
Thank you. Curtis.
Thank you so much. Renee, I feel your passion and I understand. I'm going to say that I have a history of the police, NYPD, that goes back to the 1960s and not simply last summer. And we know that there has been corruption because of this power. And as the old saying goes, absolute power is absolute corruption. However, they are a necessary evil, a necessary entity or agency to protect and serve. That's what they were created to do. The history of the police in this country has a lot more to do with slavery than anything else, but we won't go there. We'll just touch upon the NYPD. Now, we know from history that, you know, we've had corruption. As an example, the 75th precinct in East New York, you'd had police officers selling drugs through Larry Davis. All right, this is probably before your time, guys. So you may not even know about that. But my point is, we cannot, with a broad stroke, just dissolve the police department. I want to reimagine policing. I want to revisit policing. I want to engage community policing. I want to involve, of course, violence interrupters. We must work together with those who are called to protect and serve. Now, we have to reimagining policing and motivating, and I'll end with this, motivating them to do the right thing. First of all, we have to demilitarize the police.
First thing.
And then we have to give them something to lose. You cannot expect behavior to change if there's no motivation.
Thank you, Curtis. Now, Renee.
But lastly, if I may just end, see, in Crown Heights, there are other entities and people that are under assault, like our Jewish community. And that has nothing to do, it has everything to do with them simply being Jewish.
Thank you.
And we need police to make sure this community is safe, in addition to everyone else.
Renee, let's hear from you.
Listen, Curtis, I agree with you. And Regina, I agree with you also. You know, in the beginning when this issue that we've had with police officers did not just start with us today. Black people have been going through these issues with the police department and police control since slavery, the slave patrol. You had Jim Crow era. You know, you had the civil rights movement, all of these things going on where the police were not, there was a lot of misconduct. However, and I'm gonna say this, I hope it's clear, and but this is the truth. I'm a truth candidate. It's easy for non-Black people to say defund the police. It's easy, right? Black folks know we cannot defund the police. If you take away the police department or strip them of the money that you're saying that you want to take away, what do you think is going to happen down in public housing? What do you think is going to happen in low-income areas if there's a small amount of police officers that are sitting in the precinct? Although we do understand that we need to, you know, train a lot of the officers, again, they need to be retrained. We need to have more sensitivity on classes, and we need to invest in I say invest in them to make sure that they have, some of them need mental health services. You know, we need to make sure that we don't put out on the force police officers that may have racist tendencies. We have to look for all of these things. And let me tell you something, I just didn't get here yesterday. I started out my career, all right, serving on the board of the 88th Precinct Community Council. I started out with the police. And so by way of understanding more about the police, I used to talk to my councilman, James E. Davis, may his soul rest in peace, and how he would tell me about a lot of the racist activities inside of the police department and how they roughed him up and said that he was stealing his mother's car, and they beat him. And then he said that that's why he joined the police department. So we have to have ways to uncover what's going on. They have to be held accountable, and being held accountable may not be firing, but yes, I do believe that if you are guilty of misconduct and excessive force of innocent people, I think that the police should be held accountable. You have to be held accountable for anything that you do wrong. But guess what? It's just not the police department. We should defund a whole lot of people. There should be council members who should be defunded. You should be defunded sitting on a council if you're lying about affordable housing. You should be defunded too. So there's a whole lot of people that should be defunded. So we just can't talk about the police department. Let's spread this abroad.
Listen,
if I may, just really
I believe you said, Scott, I believe you said that
we're going to do Michael next. Sorry, that I know I did say that. And then we'll go to you, Crystal.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say too, like, there's often this, and I think it's a generational thing too. There's this narrowing of what safety means. Some folks think safety just means one thing, but I would ask some of the other folks here, what about allowing kids to continue to live in NYCHA apartments with lead? That's unsafe, right? How about allowing our kids to continue to go to underfunded and overcrowded schools? That's unsafe, but yet still we keep that going. So I think I think that's quite telling too, that there's a disconnect in what some folks consider safety and some others don't. And for me, what makes communities safe is resources. People who have good jobs, benefits, healthcare, stable housing, are not out on the streets committing crime. I think that's important. And the last thing I'll say is this is probably the only one in this Zoom meeting who is more likely to be a victim of gun crime, who's been robbed at gunpoint multiple times and knife point. And as a Black man who's lived here in Brooklyn my entire life, I'm gonna say it. We need to defund the NYPD and refund historically under-resourced communities like mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Crystal, you're next, and then we'll do Renee.
Thank you, Sky, and I promise I'll keep it short. I just want to say that it is disingenuous and inaccurate to imply that Black people do not want to defund the NYPD. I am Black, and I am saying that I want to defund the NYPD. I am no less or more Black than anybody else who is Black. And I think it's really important that we say that, because so often what we see is this divisiveness of trying to separate those of us holding the same space, the same intersectional identities as Black women in particular. We need to be lifting each other up and not pulling each other down. And then the other thing I just want to mention, I had tweeted about this. There's so many people and organizations, including Black people and Black-led organizations, that have been making the case for defunding the NYPD for years. It just became, broadly accepted as we went through everything we did last summer. But I do think it's a disingenuous statement to say that Black people do not want to defund the NYPD. We have models like the Cure Violence model, which is a proven model to reduce gun violence in particular. We have organizations like GMAC, Gangsters Making Astronomical Changes in the Community, which is right at, on Myrtle Avenue, right at Whitman Houses in NYCHA, talking to folks, reducing rates of gun violence. And in my Black plan for my Black agenda for New York City, I propose a pilot where we can actually do a basic income in the zip codes with the highest rates of gun violence. That is how we keep our communities safe. Thank you, Sky.
Thank you. And Renee, I know you wanted to chime in, and just keep in mind, we only have 7 minutes left, and there are a few questions in the chat that we want to get to. So let's hear from Renee.
Yes, thank you. Well, Mr. Hollingsworth talked about, we think that violence is just one thing, but that is not true. We understand about violence in public housing, and I haven't heard your voice on that at any time. But it's not even just your voice, it's what have you done about the lead? What have you said about the lead and all of those toxic things that happens in public housing? Let me tell you what I've done, Michael. 80-year-old Miss Graley, who lives in Farragut housing, called me and she said, Miss Collymore, please come and help me. There is a hole in our wall, in the wall in my apartment. And I went over there, I took a video of the wall, and it was a big hole and the wall was splitting open. And I got on social media and I called people out. I called names and I made sure that everyone heard me talking about Miss Graley and how she needs help. She said she's 80 and she's lived there since she was 20. There's no reason why an 80-year-old woman has to be subject to this type of nonsense going on in the city of New York. Guess what, Michael? You know what I did? I made sure that that wall was fixed. She called me 7 days later. Guess what, Ms. Collymore? They fixed my apartment. You know why? Because there's a leader in the community. I took the time to make sure that when I heard her cry and I heard her voice say that she had lead, she had mold in her apartment, and I saw what was actually going on, I took the initiative, and rightfully so, to go down into public housing and make sure that that was fixed. I want you to know that's what leadership is. And this is why I am asking to be in the New York City Council by the voters of New York, because it's going to take someone not just to talk about something, you have to put your hands to work. It is about putting your foot in the trenches, getting inside of the community and letting the people tell you what's happening, and then you fix it. It's not about hearing, it's about doing. I am not just a hearer, I'm a doer.
Thank you. Okay.
That was a discussion. I think we should do
I know, Regina, you have your hand in there. We have 4 minutes left, and I want to give everyone time for like concluding thoughts. So everyone will have 1 minute. Do you want to say something quickly?
Yes, I do want to go back to Mr. Hollingsworth also, with all due respect, Mr. Hollingsworth. We cannot continue to come up with excuses of poverty for this bad behavior and for us living in fear in our communities. And when you speak about the lead, I was leading the charge and sounding the alarm when this mayor that's been there for eight years allowed the lead fiasco to go on and ignoring the children in there and never saying the word. I didn't hear anyone else up here. I didn't know you were Crystal at the time. Maybe Crystal could have been back here from Maryland or wherever she was. I'm not sure. But we have to start holding these electeds accountable. And another thing, the story starts in the home. Stop coming up with excuses for this bad behavior, coming up with excuses for criminals, and coming up with excuses for why our community, they're behaving not the way they're behaving. And that we should have our police take funds where we should be making our police department a 21st century police department to match this 21st century crime that we're experiencing. We didn't have this kind of crime 20, 30 years ago. So we need to make some increases there where it can match the crimes. We need a 21st century police department, 21st century health and hospital system, and 21st century housing that the residents can afford. Stop acting like the Black community is so underpoverished and we just can't help ourselves and we need all of this help. And this is why our behavior is so bad. That's unfair. If I could raise a son to be the man that he is in this war zone, so can anyone else as a single mother.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just want to say Black people are not inherently criminal. So I just want to clear, I want to say that. It sounds like Ms. Kinsey is saying that we're—
People have stopped acting like we're so impoverished, we can't work, we have jobs.
I would just like to see Black neighborhoods resourced like other neighborhoods have been historically.
Then you should have been asking these electeds over these years to put the resources into the community. You should have been asking the electeds to put the resources in.
Listen, I want to say something now that the audience is typing in that they don't like hearing you guys fight with each other. And this is my hypothesis being proved correctly, that on these debates, sometimes we get into policy, but the voters really want to know how you guys feel about one another and who's nice and who's not nice. It's funny that that's what voters want to see. So there are some really good questions in here. We only have 1 minute left, but people have questions specifically. I don't know if everyone can see these Q&A questions, but maybe everyone does a really, really quick conclusion because we are at time. But some of the questions, can Crystal answer the question about what she did to prevent the 2018 Franklin Avenue rezoning? Michael Hollingsworth, do you support upzoning of wealthy white neighborhoods across the city as a way to mitigate displacement pressures and rising housing costs in a socioeconomically and ethically diverse community district? Council District 35. Renee, I heard you propose a plan for building tiny house villages to solve homelessness. Like, there are really good questions in here. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to answer them all, but I want to go around to give everyone just a 30-second concluding opportunity. And let's go in our original order with Renee first.
Well, I would just like to say that my leadership would represent protection. And over the past 8 years, this community has been raped. We have been taken advantage of. We have been lied to, because no one will stand up to the developers, and no one will stand up to the developers more than I will. Now, I am fighting for affordable housing. This is so important because our Black existence is on the line, and we are at risk for being extinct in our own communities. We have to make sure that we don't have this 80-20. 20% of affordable means the lower income people, the middle income people, the middle class have less of a chance to remain here because that affordable is not affordable. It is not affordable for the Black and brown people who have built this community. My family has been here since the 1940s. I understand when I hear people cry about having to move out of their own neighborhood. We have to make sure we get 100% affordable units built. And we have to get developers who will build those.
Let's finish it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Curtis, final 30 seconds. You're on mute.
Thank you so much. So I want to take the time to thank you, Sky and Steve, for hosting this event. To all of our District 35 residents, we thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you'll make a choice on June 22nd. I want to bring back a sense of joy and peace and happiness into our district. And that's one of the reasons why we did the Rolling to the Polls roller skating event last Saturday at PS9. If you were there, I hope you enjoyed yourself, but that's who I am. In addition to the serious policy issues, the housing and the pandemic issues that we have to address, and the senior issues and the health issues, we have to be a district that loves on each other and that's not afraid of each other. So I offer you that. I offer you my transparency. I offer you my boldness, and I offer you my leadership and my catchphrase, which you didn't ask me earlier. My catchphrase is, I lead next to people, not in front.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Michael Hollingsworth, final 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to actually take this to kind of answer one of the questions in the chat because I think it's important. Yes, we need to be building in every neighborhood. That's the ultimate goal. Like we have 60,000 folks who are unhoused, about 20,000 kids sleep in shelters every night. The only way we get out of this current housing crisis is by building in every neighborhood. Yeah, again, thanks for having me. I appreciate you holding this event. And if folks are looking for new leadership that again isn't beholden to or corrupted by the establishment and not indebted to political big real estate, and has actually done some stuff and actually had some accomplishments and kept folks in their homes, then I'm your candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Crystal Hudson, final thoughts.
Yes, thank you. Thanks again to Schneps Media and Politics New York for hosting us here this evening. I think, I just want to restate what I said up front, which is that I have a proven record of leadership and delivering for the community. Not only did I start a mutual aid organization because I was concerned about my neighbors and wanted to ensure they had access to food and resources and their prescriptions in a time of crisis, but I also helped seniors get access to the vaccine when the government was not ensuring that they would have access to the vaccine. If I'm elected, I would be the first gay Black woman ever elected in New York City. So I'm really proud and excited to be running a historic campaign. I hope that you all will make history with us and help elect me as your next council member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Regina Kinsey, your final 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you for having me, Sky and Mr. Went. I just want to say and remind everyone that I'm a pro-safety candidate. I too want affordable housing. I want more senior housing. I want to get our school-age children and their families into housing that they actually can afford. And I want to bring common sense and reasoning back to City Hall with a pragmatic approach to governing so that we could finally have balance back in our community.
Thank you very much.
ReginaKinsey.com. for more of my platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, panelists, candidates, our live audience, my co-host, Steve with a tie, Guy, on behalf of Schneps Media and PoliticsNY. It all rhymes, and that's done on purpose. So thank you, guys. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you to the live audience. Thank you for willing to represent District 35. We are the only media platform allowing, you to have your faces seen and voices heard. Submit us your op-eds, tag us on your social media posts. Our job here is to amplify your voices to the voters to get as many people out to vote as possible in June. So good luck to you all. Thank you so much. Peace and love, and see you next time on Politics NY.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.